Amics y amigas, participantes, dear friends, this is about to finish. But the end is the best part of the story, right? The last keynote speaker is Juliana Rotich. From Nairobi, in Kenya, Juliana is co-founder of Ushahidi, an open-source project which allows users to crowdsource crisis information to be sent via mobile. She is co-founder of Brick, an innovative technology designed to help people in Africa connect to the internet anywhere, even if there isn't electricity nearby. She was recognized by Fortune magazine as 2014 50 Global Leaders and as the Social Entrepreneur of the Year 2011 by the World Economic Forum. She is an energetic and a smart woman, and she's here to explain how new platforms to create increased connectivity around the globe aren't just good business strategies. They can also have an enormously beneficial impact on the life of individuals and the communities where they live and work. Juliana Rotich.
Thank you very much. I come to you from the edge. Like she said, I live in Nairobi, Kenya, and I'm trained as a computer scientist. And my path to me standing here is actually a testament to what happens when the world is more connected. I started out in Kenya and lived in the US for a while, where I worked in the telecom industries and data warehousing. And in 2008, came together with other kindred spirits when we were faced with an information flow problem during the post-election violence in Kenya. Out of that came Ushahidi, which I will talk about in just a moment. I have one question that I'd like to begin my presentation with, that I'd like for you to keep in mind as we have a chat today. That question is, what is your emergency? We all have different emergencies of different scales. And I'll start by giving you an example of one emergency that happened in Louisiana in 2010, not just because that it uses Ushahidi, but because it illustrates what happens when individuals, even small organizations, answer this question: what is our emergency? Are you able to get the sound? Okay. I apologize. I'm afraid that sound is not coming through. But this particular use case is from Louisiana. Anna and her collaborators put together a very important map called the Louisiana Bucket Brigade, which crowdsourced information about the oil spill that happened in Louisiana. This is a very powerful example of what happens after CNN has stopped covering the story of the oil spill. What happens to those communities? What happens to the livelihood of fishermen? What happens to the communities? What sort of problems do they deal with? That map was very, very successful, and it has continued to chronicle how those communities have changed over the years. So since 2009, we've seen uses of the Ushahidi platform grow. And just to illustrate a little bit about what the platform allows people to do is it allows for bottom-up information flow, for data collection, aggregation, and visualization. So think of it as a funnel. You have different ways of reporting into the Ushahidi platform, via SMS, via email, via social networks, and whatever devices people have in their pockets or purses, they're able to submit that information, which is then verified, and then it appears on the map. So since 2009, we've seen crisis maps, election maps, corruption maps, and environmental monitoring maps like the one I mentioned in Louisiana. It is now global with its roots in Kenya. When we first did the initial prototype, it was to map where violence was happening in Kenya. And the community spans more than 150 countries. And I'm proud to say that Spain is actually one of the first countries where we had people using the platform, some NGOs. One of my first trips was actually to Asturias, where I worked on a workshop with some of the NGOs there. And currently, my connection with Spain is that I serve on the board of Bankinta Foundation, which is really, really driving entrepreneurship and innovation here in Spain. So who would have thought that a girl from Kenya would be serving on a board in Spain? But it happens. That's what happens when you have global connectivity and you have links and you have people like you here who are interested in the different ideas that power our planet. One of the key ideas is there's more that we're doing to explore collective intelligence. And just a few months ago, about a month ago, the team at Ushahidi launched the new version of the crowdsourcing platform because it had been a few years since the platform it needed to be revamped. So this is a snapshot of the current version, which you can find when you go to ushahidi.com. You can quickly sign up and create a deployment within minutes. When we first started, that used to take more than 30 minutes. And when we even began, it used to take more than 3 hours. So, hey, you can do it in just a few minutes now. Just go to ushahidi.com. And one of the key things that we've learned over the years is that near real-time mapping, visualization of crowdsourced information can provide a platform for collective intelligence. Because it's not enough for me to just know that something is happening. It is important for me to be able to share that. And if other people share what they see and what is going on, and if we take all of that information, we can start to create this idea of collective intelligence. And these platforms, like Ushahidi and others, are the platforms that can help us to inform and to engage citizens. Things are no longer a unilateral way of communication. It is now a conversation. It is now bilateral ways of communicating. And if we're to create smart cities of the future, we cannot just do that with sensors. I'm a big fan of sensors. I love the idea of the Internet of Things. But if we do not connect that in terms of informing and engaging citizens, we're doing only half the job. So what platforms can do is they can help to improve service delivery to individuals with whatever devices they're using. Imagine if a woman in Nairobi who works as a house help is able to get a text message that tells her, today we're collecting this particular type of garbage. So please sort your garbage so that it can be collected and we can do a better job of recycling. We can change how information flows in a way that we can really connect the cities to the citizens to make things better. And we can provide services to communities that are now global. It's not enough for us to come up with things that work in just one location. The thing about technology and the thing about innovation is that it can spread from anywhere, as you exemplified by Ushahidi and M-Pesa, which is the mobile money platform that came out of Kenya. These things can become global and can serve other communities beyond where they are conceived and made. And like I said, it's about also changing how information flows. Sean Gorley, one of the co-founders of Quid, he's a scientist, one of the smartest people you'll ever meet. He's a TED Fellow and has a talk about the mathematics of science. And he tweeted this in 2012, but I think it still rings true, that artificial intelligence, collective intelligence, and augmented intelligence, these are the toolkits for today's decision makers. So when you think about collective intelligence and you think about the cities that you all are working in, it's important to think about some of these open platforms like Ushahidi and some of the work that Mozilla is doing as an additional low-cost way of adding to your toolkit for engaging with the people in your cities. Another very important thing, how many of you are on Facebook? Do we realize just how, many of you are probably wondering, what is it about Facebook that makes it so addictive? There is a piece in Wired magazine that looked at just this question, and they went back to this idea that feedback loops are extremely important in creating behavior change and creating repeated action and activity. I will be the first to confess that sometimes I log into Facebook not even knowing what it is I'm looking for. There's someone who once said that sometimes logging into social networks is like opening the fridge, looking at it, and then closing it, not really sure what it is you want to pick up from the fridge. And when we look at cities, when we look at current feedback loops, we have things like the 311 system in the US, where a concerned citizen calls 311, reports illegal dumping or reports something, and they may never hear back. They may never get that dashboard, like the way Facebook does, that tells you what is the new information, what is the current status of whatever it is you've reported. We are not incorporating feedback loops as much as we need to in how we create information systems. So that is something that we really need to look at in terms of how we can improve that. Let's go to Ireland for an example of how to do that. There's a platform that uses the Ushahidi platform called fixyourstreet.ie. Now, the thing that is really amazing about this map is not only the fact that people in Dublin, in Ireland, are able to actually report where the citizen reporting is done in 4 counties and city councils and acts as a visual report. But what they did is they took their mandate of responding within 48 hours to reported incidents. Here they are using a free and open source tool to complement the mandate that they have for their city. I find this extremely inspirational and quite instructive as to the power and ability for us to take the mandate of informing and engaging with citizens, you couple that with technology and deliver in terms of showing citizens what it is we're doing for the city to make that city better, and to engage them in a way that they feel that they are part of the problem solving of issues in their city. So it's not just about, oh, we have gridlock, or oh, we have air quality issues. We also have a way of engaging with citizens and challenging them as to how they can help to make things better. Like I mentioned before, if you go to ushahidi.com, there's a very simple service, a hosted mapping service that can enable you to try some of these ideas out for whatever counties or whatever level of engagement you would like to create in your various communities. And you can be up and running in no time. And this can be for various emergencies. Some of them are slow burn emergencies, and some of them may be flashpoint emergencies. So for example, if you have an earthquake, like the way the platform was used in Haiti, or even most recently in Nepal for the earthquake, these platforms can be useful in both flashpoint events where you need immediate coordination of information and helping to bring information flow from bottom up and visualize it and create a way for people to discover and to add to that platform. And last but not least, creating feedback loops by using platforms like Ushahidi and others can act as a way for people to make information public and can help with transparency of cities where there's a visual communication, and people can even create alerts. So for example, if somebody is just interested in a specific radius, they can actually say that I'm only interested in information or alerts about a specific area. It can be very, very powerful, and this is how it could work. Evidence of something is seen on the map. Relevance, you can zoom into a specific area that you're interested in, and you can identify the issues that you would like to address or things that are relevant to you, and action. This can be submitting reports or, in the part of the city, reporting back about action on reported incidents. It can be very, very powerful. And why would this be powerful? In some cities in America, you have these speed governors, or like a dashboard that shows you what speed you're driving. And so let's say you get close to a school zone. It'll tell you, this is the speed limit, and this is the speed you're going at. And when you look at that dashboard, your behavior changes, because if the speed limit is higher than what it's supposed to be, then you're able to regulate that. So crowdsourced maps can act as a citywide driver to help change behavior. Imagine if we had a dashboard of air quality, a dashboard of congestion. We're starting to see more of those in different cities, but in emerging markets and the cities that I live in, I currently live in Nairobi and sometimes travel within the continent, there's still more to be done in terms of creating some of these feedback loops and dashboards. Let's go back to that question I started with. What is your emergency? I'd like for you to meet Martin Bert. He's from Paraguay. He's a well-noted social entrepreneur, celebrated by the Skoll World Forum. And in a conversation with him, we talked about this question. And it turns out for him that poverty is an emergency. And with Anargia and other people from our team, we worked with his organization to map the various needs on the ground. Why do I mention this? Because this will take us to the next point that I'd like to make today. In communities where poverty is prevalent, sometimes when you have policymakers, leaders, or decision makers making decisions about those areas, they don't realize that poverty is not only an emergency, but it differs. So from one community to another, there could be a radius of 20 meters or even 50 meters. The issue here could be sanitation. The issue here could be electricity. The issue here could be gender-based violence. So how do we create systems that are sensitive to and provide near real-time information about granular conditions? And how do we surface that information in a way that informs policy, so that when you have a policy coming down or interventions, that it's not just a blanket idea? Because if you say, okay, we're going to electrify this whole area, what you might miss is that you'll electrify the whole area, but then you will not have done anything about sanitation. And the problem of poverty is that it differs in different, people are poor in different ways. And in talking with Martin, we really thought about this question of how do we create, how do we change this? And in addition to the fact that Fundación Paraguaya uses Ushahidi, he also has influence because of the work that he's doing with the government in Paraguay to make sure that the top-down policies are responsive to the bottom-up information that is collected. That brings me to this really, really important point, that we need to create spaces where bottom-up and top-down interventions meet. And why would we want to do this? One of the people that I greatly admire is Joey Ito, who is the current director of MIT Media Lab. He talks about this idea that we live in an ecosystem now, that the solutions to our cities, the solutions to a lot of the different problems will not come from one individual. Well, unless if we clone Elon Musk, which I don't think we have that technology yet. But the thing is, it'll come from network effects, it'll come from collaborations, it'll come from us working together. And this idea of creating spaces for bottom-up and top-down things to come together is not new. And we're starting to see different ecosystems emerge. The one that I've seen with my own eyes is the one that happens to be in Nairobi, Kenya. It is grounded in terms of it's something that came out of Ushahidi. And this is a picture of my colleagues. The colleagues that you see there, you've got Kenyans, Americans, different people from various parts of the world, Indians, and all of them came together in Nairobi last year, where we were talking about the ecosystem effect of working together in Nairobi. And the key idea that came out of that was designing with and not just for. So whatever cities or whichever locations, it's really, really important to engage with the young people in places like tech hubs. In this case, this picture was taken at the iHub in Nairobi. So why would you want to do this? Why would you want to create these places? And one of the key things that JP Rangaswamy, who is one of the chief scientists at Salesforce.com, talks about when he looks at platforms and communities is that sharing creates value. The efficiencies that we see in services like Uber or other things in the sharing economy is a really important reminder for us. So as we create these spaces, create an ethos of sharing because that creates a lot of value. And there's several nodes around the world. I just happen to come from one in iHub, and it's really fantastic to hear about some that are happening here in Spain and in the various countries that you come from. I'm sure there are many spaces that have been created, and if they haven't been created, maybe you should create one. And it can bring together app developers, venture capitalists, business people, people who are engaged in city planning, the problems and the headaches that cities have to deal with. The key idea here is to connect in these centers with a diverse group of people who can bring different skills to work together to come up with innovative solutions. And one of those key things to remember is that these spaces need to be diverse. In the case of Kenya, in iHub, the community is 17%, which is pretty good for the gender parity of the space. And that's because we made it inclusive of women from the very beginning. We didn't say, oh, this is just a space for the tech geeks who are mostly guys, but they're tech geeks who are also women, and they need to have spaces that they're comfortable in. Since then, we've seen in about 5 years, we've seen about more than 16,000 registered members. And we've got more than 18 startups that have been incubated through the mobile lab, which is on the 3rd floor of the building. We've had 5 editions of Pivot, which is a startup pitching competition. I'm sad to say that none of those competitions was geared towards solving the issues of the city of Nairobi, but maybe in future we will work on something. There have been more than 125 startups and more than 10 million plus of funding from different funding sources flowing into the different ecosystems. Now, I'd like to share something new that I'm on the board of, and it's also part of the iHub ecosystem and part of something that Ushahidi supports, and this is the idea of Gearbox. And Gearbox is a rapid prototyping space that will provide connectivity, it'll provide tools, it'll provide training for artisans. And why do I mention this? I mention this because innovation happens both in formal and informal economies. In Kenya, we have something called Jua Kali, which is roughly translated hot sun. These are artisans who work outside in the middle of the burning sun. That's why it's called hot sun. And they come up with different innovations, and they come up with different basic things that are sold. And this particular informal economy, and we also have a road. We call it IKEA. It's not an actual IKEA. But you have artisans on the side of the road where you can get furniture, you can get pretty much anything made. And the key idea here is that we need to have more spaces that bring the formal and the informal economy together to support creativity, to support innovation, and to support collective problem solving. Last but not least is to connect those spaces and to create flow with other paragons of innovation in the world. So this is a recent picture from one of the collaborations we had with MIT Media Lab. And my team was really inspired by the flow between the entrepreneurs in iHub and some of the researchers from MIT Media Lab. And this sort of flow between centers of excellence in the different cities around the world is really important in order for us to create impactful solutions that can be really useful wherever it is we are. So I think I'll end there. I really didn't get, actually really quickly, I can just touch on BRIC. One of the co-founders of Ushahidi and also of BRIC, his name is David Kobia. When we were walking into a school, said, you know, Juliana, access is an equalizer. And this is a picture of Kawangware Primary School, where we were doing a joint project with one of the startups called eLimo. And one of the problems there was the headmaster of the school said, you know, we have these tablets, we have information, we have all these things, but our problem is internet. And when we look at the population of school-going children, it's expected that in 2050 that number will go upwards of 800 million. So there are various challenges, and we came up with the BRIC, which is a router and a 3G modem in one, which also has battery power, and we added a micro server. And when we did that, we put it all in a box. And this is a tough box that can be wheeled into a classroom, and we call this the BRIC Kio Kit. In it, you have 40 tablets that provide localized content for children. Now, this solution is useful not only to tackle the issue of education, because that is something that is important for cities, but it can be localized for other things around healthcare and helping to answer that question of why access matters and why would we want to equalize access. And I will end with this quote that while education unlocks the door to development, it is technologies that can unlock the door to education. And I feel that as we look at the different challenges, let's think about the innovative ideas, spaces that we can collaborate to actually deal with many of the problems in our various cities, so that in the face of gridlock, we know that we have connected the top-down policies with the bottom-up information that we can collect and create spaces where we can provide the funding and we can provide the support for real solutions, so we can get out of whatever gridlock or whatever big problem there is. And that's just a wrap-up slide to highlight the 3 key ideas that I wanted to share with you today. Open platforms for collective intelligence, entrepreneurial spaces for bottom-up and top-down to meet and create actual solutions, and innovative problem solving like what we have seen with BRIC education. Thank you very much for your kind attention. I don't know if we'll be taking questions. Will we be taking questions? Okay. I'm happy to take any of your questions at this time.
Hi.
Oh, okay.
Okay, thank you. I'm Dorit Seitz with the Daily Politiken from Denmark. Just a question. When you talk about emergency situations, wouldn't an earthquake exactly be the moment where you can't access internet or send text messages to communicate?
Of course. So the role of platforms like this is actually around coordination and information flow. The restoration of services like mobile telephony or connections, that's gratefully the role of the private sector. And the key thing is to be able to complement whatever efforts they have and making sure that you have, so like let's say, in the case of Haiti, the US command, they were able to use data from the Haiti map that was translated and geolocated in order to, while they were going to do the situational awareness or like the report of what is going on the ground, they were able to carry water because that was something that was indicated via text message that was a need. So you're not just showing up to go, oh, what is the problem? And then going back and then saying, oh, let's go bring water because that's the problem. You've already asked the citizens, what is the issue? So that when you're going there, you can start solving the problem right away. You're welcome. Any other questions?
Hi, I'm Manas from Isade. You were talking about entrepreneurial spaces that connect top down and bottom up. I just wanted to understand what exactly do you mean by that? Are you fostering entrepreneurship in the C and D of the pyramid, or what exactly is the initiative about?
So specifically for iHub and Gearbox, at this particular point, we're just fostering entrepreneurship. What needs to happen more of is entrepreneurship for cities. And that can only that can happen with more engagement from cities and city planners to engage with the entrepreneurs, particularly tech entrepreneurs, because if they come up with a solution and it's not taken up by the municipality, for example, there needs to be incentive, both from local governments, but also from city planners. Give us your headache, or give us what the challenge is, so that you can, people can come up with innovative solutions.
What is your opinion about entrepreneurship, fostering entrepreneurship in the bottom of the pyramid, where particularly where ideas in D part of the pyramid, where there are ideas but there is no financial ability to actually execute those ideas?
That's exactly what we're trying to do with iHub and Gearboxes, to create this space where those ideas can be incubated, can be prototyped, and what is needed is connecting those ideas with funding and capital and incentives for those to actually scale and grow beyond a specific locality. So I think fostering ideas at the bottom of the pyramid, you know, when we're looking at, yeah, I think basically that's what we're trying to do with the iHub and Gearbox. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much. It means testimony or witness in Swahili.